bringing shame to Christ as a believer is much worse than an atheist bringing shame on himself. Well, if you're joining us in reading through the 60-day reading plan, today's reading is 2 Peter chapter 2, verses 1 through 4, and I encourage you to read that passage. Recently, I was looking at an interview with Ravi Zacharias and Dennis Prager, and on this interview, one of them commented it was much worse for a believer to perform a sin than it is for an atheist because a believer impugns the character of God through his sin. The atheist only impugns himself. Well, Peter's going to take this entire chapter to talk about heretics. These are people who claim to be related to God through Christ and yet actively turn from a righteous walk to an unrighteous one. These are people who live for themselves and try to bring others to live like them. Pointing a finger at people is easy, and we as believers should be very cautious about pronouncing judgment on others who say they believe. But it is our responsibility to make sure that we do nothing dirty to Christ. And it is our responsibility to call out others who do dirty Christ. Well, I saw in the newspaper this week 2 well-known men who through their actions brought shame on Christ. One of these men encouraged a person not to report a physical assault for her husband and passed off sexual innuendo by just saying essentially that boys will be boys. This man was forced to resign his high position and brought to shame to Christ because now others will use him as an excuse not to develop a relationship with Christ. The second man is an evangelist who travels around the world. He finds commercial air travel to be too disruptive to his life, and therefore he chooses to have those who give money pay for a $54 million aircraft. Now, to whom is he going to witness while he's flying on his private jet? He has brought shame to Christ because he has done the same thing that the disciples did with the woman at the well in John chapter 4. They passed on by her on the way to town. They had the same opportunity as Christ had to speak with her, and yet they chose their comfort over her needs. Well, we need to be very careful that we don't present ourselves in such a way that our lives show the fruit of bad personal theology.